All right, we're live. Go ahead.
Welcome. I'd like to call the Park and Recreation Advisory Board meeting to order. Time is 6:01. First off, we'd like to start off with introductions. First, we'll start off with the Park and Recs Advisory Board members. I'm Robert Harrison, Chair and from District 2. We go around and have other board members.
I'm Cassie McClure with District 1.
Stan Engel, District 4.
Eric Montgomery, District 5.
Megan Schuler, District 6.
Is that large present?
Mr. Chair, this is Sonia. I am calling to let you know that Ms. Zahler is trying to get on.
Through phone or through Zoom?
Phone.
Okay. I thought I heard her in the background a while ago. Was she on?
She was on my phone and it was picking it up.
Oh, okay. Well, when she gets through, we'll let her introduce herself. Moving forward to introductions of the park and recreation staff, city staff, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Phil Katnack, Recreation Administrator.
Franco Granillo, Parks Administrator.
Robert Nunez, Youth Services Administrator.
Kathy Matthews, Landscape Architect.
Ceci Vasconcelos, Community Engagement Coordinator.
Sonia Delgado, Parks and Recreation Director.
Tony Trevino, Interim Deputy Director of Public Works.
David Cedillo, Interim Public Works Director.
Ed Carnathan, Visit Las Cruces Sports Manager.
Are there any others?
This is Sridevi, Architect with the city.
All right, we'll move on. The next portion is any board member or staff to note their conflict of interest at the opening of the meeting. Is there any board or city staff that has any known conflict of interest with any of the items on the agenda?
No.
No conflicts. Then moving forward, the board members to review and approve the agenda as written for tonight's meeting.
Mr. Chair, this is Eric. I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is Megan. I second that motion.
All right, motion's been approved and seconded. Any questions or discussions?
Mr. Chair, this is Sonia.
Yes.
I don't think you have a quorum.
One, Stan, Cassie, Stan, Eric. There's more than 4.
Oh, we didn't have them introduced on the record, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, we have Cassie, Stan, Eric, myself, and Megan. So 5. All those in favor to approve the agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone
Aye.
opposed? Good. Sounds like unanimous. Going ahead and approval of the minutes. Reviewing the document, does anyone have any changes they'd like to make on the previous meeting minutes? And if you don't, you can make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Mr. Chair, this is Eric. I make a motion to approve the minutes.
This is Cassie. I second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the minutes as written. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Motion passes to approve the minutes as written. Now, moving on to public participation or public comment. There were, I believe, 3 emails that went through that are related to tonight's discussions and presentations regarding East Mesa and parks and sports improvements. The first one is it appears there's 2 from the same person, so I'll go ahead and read them. This one says, "Sincerely, Thomas Winter," and I'll just read it verbatim. In conjunction with the provision for the public participation and input to the above meeting, please present the following questions to whoever can best address East Mesa entry road funding. Reference to the 6.1 East Mesa Recreation Complex and page 3 of the presentation. And he has a documentation link from there as well. During the public review of the original online PowerPoint presentation of the 3 options, funding for the access roads was verbally discussed. At that time, it was revealed that the expected state funding had been denied and that other sources would have to be researched over the 2 years remaining for the project completion. My comments submitted at that time were road construction funding needs to be addressed immediately so that it will not delay the project further. Money to build the entrance road must not come from the GO bond funds. New paragraph. The latest document shows that funding for the roadways was amazingly found by sucking the money directly from the GO bond fund as feared. And then he has a link to the budget GO bonds, $6.5 million for the complex, $2 million for the entry road. Next paragraph. This means that the shortfall will result in elimination of something promised in the park projects. There has been no detailed accountability for cost of the individual elements of these projects from the beginning. This continues to allow for a budget shell game to shift monies at will. The public needs to know the breakdown of all the elements of these projects and that reallocated roadway funds will come from other city resources, not the park GO bonds themselves. Sincerely, Thomas Winter. So I'll just present those, and presenters or other staff at later point feel obligated to address those, please do. Here's the second one. In conjunction with what's going on, read these. With reference to item 6.1, East Mesa Recreation Complex and the presentation document and the link that we all have. The drawings show parking without the actual lot capacities indicated. While the size may be adequate during normal activity, participation in tournaments and special events can increase the parking requirement many times over. Parking overflow areas should be provided for each of the venues. This need only be areas cleared of brush and topped with crushed stone. I do not believe the design or the roadways or normal safety restrictions would allow for parking along the shoulders. This should be addressed in the initial construction as well. Sincerely, Thomas Winter. So those are two that were related to the East Mesa project. And this one is for the Parks and Rec sport courts improvement. And he's also a former board and rec member as Park and Rec Advisory Board member for District 4, excuse me. My name is Frank Carroll with the Pickleball Interest. I attended the last open public working meeting on site at Apodaca Park. Afterwards, we were invited to submit ideas through Parks to Wilson Company for suggested ideas and reviews. I've submitted my complete package, which included drawing for 8 pickleball courts, first pickleball courts in Las Cruces, pad restoration, 21st century outdoor flooring as used in Espanola High School, new LED lighting heads, safety fencing, 10-foot with multiple gating max with ADA, wind screens for the entire perimeter, allowance for new sidewalks around the existing pad. All components bid OSHA standards with labor, figuring state standards and Davis-Bacon Act. I have completely bid out the project, resulting in $250,000 with a possible plus $30,000 saving margin, meaning the project could range from $220,000 to $250,000, meaning that the cost dollar savings, much as 25% of the $300,000 budgeted for this improvement. And he's also submitted a building plan for 8 to 12 weeks, depending on the labor availability and virus considerations, including cost estimates. And this is from Frank Carroll with the Pickleball Interest. And I believe possibly some staff might be able to comment on this and further on in the meeting. So those are the 3 public comments that I have. Now, as we move forward to action item, now it's time for the 6.1 that they mentioned in the East Mesa Recreation Complex. Mr. Trevino, will you be presenting on this?
Excuse me, I was on mute. Good afternoon, Chair, members of the board. For the East Mesa Sports and Recreation Complex, we have Mr. George Ranovich here from Site Southwest and Ms. Bridget Fuller from Wilson and Company, who will be giving the presentation. So George, can you share your screen?
I can, I believe. I'm not, I've never shared my screen on Zoom, so let me see. Hold on 1 minute. Okay. Okay, can you see my screen? Everyone?
Yes, I can see it.
Oh, good. You see the pretty glass yucca right now, but bear with me. And I will pull up the presentation. Okay. Great. So this is a PDF, not a PowerPoint. Thank you for allowing us to present this project to you. My name's George Radnovich. I'm with Site Southwest. We're doing this project for the city of Las Cruces, as you know, and Wilson and Company is the lead consultant on the project, and Bridget Fuller is here for Wilson and Company. And the stage we're at right now is the East Mesa Public Recreation Complex Master Plan. And so this presentation will go through where we are now, and then we'll have some time for discussion as well. So the agenda for the meeting will be an introduction to the project. I don't know how much all of you know about it, and we'll do that. We'll have a summary of the public meetings for the project. We'll do a presentation of the draft master plan itself, the preferred option, and then we'll talk about next steps. So the planned improvements, as you all know from the GeoBond, were that the project would include field sports, soccer football fields, baseball fields, court sports, and that would be 8 pickleball courts, amenities and infrastructure. The amenities would be concessions areas, restrooms, a food truck court, a plaza. There'd be a traditional park, which is a 10-acre traditional park. There's obviously transportation related to it, the entry roads, trails around the park, parking itself, and pedestrian circulation. And the GeoBond was for $6.5 million for the complex and $2 million for the entry road. To talk about I think one of your comments from the public was that we didn't include the number of parking on the master plan. We didn't include the numbers on it yet, but they were all scaled, and we do have adequate parking for the first phase of work planned in. So I don't have that number with me. I wasn't expecting to talk about that, but we can sure provide that for you after the meeting. So we did a pretty extensive study of the land area. The black dashed line shows the outline of the BLM land. It's about 350 acres, as you know. And Wilson and Company is doing a study to determine where the roads into the project location might be. And this is just showing the general location for the complex and those roads. One would go to Sonoma Springs Avenue, the other out to Sonoma Ranch Road at Camino Coyote, and the third would go up to Sonoma Springs Boulevard. Bridget, did you want to speak at all about the study and the potential entry roads?
Yes, so the road study, we're working with the City Public Works Department, and it's an initial conceptual study to determine what might be the most effective way to for entry into the study. It includes a traffic study, so we're looking at traffic, we're looking at all existing utilities, and just the best methods to get the public into the site.
Thanks. Can you all see my cursor?
Yes, I can.
Good. There's also, as you know, 2 arroyos flanking the site, the South Fork, which is right here, and the North Fork, which is right here. And they'll provide access, pedestrian and trail access to the facility as well, because there are trails planned along those arroyos. This is 2 maps, and it is showing the constraints for the site and the opportunities for the site. And so what we did is we studied that pretty heavily, spent quite a bit of time on it. Constraints for the site would include the utility lines, the overhead utility lines, which are here, here, and here. The floodplains, and this shows the whole floodplain here and here. not just those little dashed lines. It may not seem like a constraint, but we really didn't want to touch the virgin desert, the desert that exists there now. So these green blobs show where the desert is and where it has not been compromised in any way. The gray area shows where there has been disturbance of the desert and a little less pristine condition there. A constraint also shows obviously the roads. It's actually an opportunity as well. The Walmart Neighborhood Center is right here, the public safety complex here. The opportunities map shows places where the complex should be potentially developed. Another thing that we're not showing on the presentation today is a slope map. And another thing that we learned from doing the slope map is that the heavily sloped areas are, for the most part, these green areas where the desert is. The less sloped and more disturbed areas are these pink areas right in here. So these maps really pointed the direction for where the complex would best be placed in terms of environmental degradation and where slopes are, which translates to, in terms of design and construction, translates to grading and drainage. And the more slope you have, obviously, the more grading you might need. The roads we're still showing here. Trails, as I mentioned, and this came off the City of Las Cruces Trails map, are shown here along a lane along Sonoma Ranch, and then trails, as I mentioned, along the arroyos, and then another trail as the East Loman extension occurs down in the future. We're also showing some potential other opportunities for connections, and we're showing trails on this map as well, which you can see correlates to the lines through the desert on this map. So those really helped us. Those maps really helped us get through kind of studying the site and understanding where the complex should go. And what we did after we did that is we held public meetings. Now, the first public meeting we held before we did the constraints, because that meeting, and it was held in person, not virtually, and that meeting was really a listen to the public kind of meeting. We wanted to hear everything that anyone had to say about the meeting. We held 2 public meetings back to back on 2 successive days. It was really great. We got a lot of comments and a lot of kind of direction from the public. The second public meetings, which were also not virtual, we had a little design exercise for everyone. And we also had a design exercise with Parks and Rec, which this photo is showing. These 4 options, we had 4 tables at the meeting, and these 4 options were what the public at the meeting came up with. And we had about, I would say, close to 50 participants at that meeting. And it was really great as well. They really came up with some creative ideas. People started to put down the cookie cutters, the cutouts that we had brought to the meeting. And this isn't showing it, but they had a lot of drawing that they did on the maps as well. So we kind of cleaned them up, and this is the cleaned up version of what they did. The third public meeting was the virtual one. And we had quite a bit of response. I was shocked myself. We did a static presentation and we had 23,000 views, which is pretty amazing considering that the project is in Las Cruces. That's a quarter of the population, or almost a quarter. We also had about 16 pages of comments, so we got a lot of good comments from the public at that meeting. And what we did with those comments is we categorized them, and those comments, along with comments from Public Works and Parks and Rec, helped us determine where to go for the preferred option. And I'll go through that with you here in a second. So a lot of the comments we got from those public meetings were about safety and maintaining views. A maintaining views had a lot to do with shielding the lights. People wanted to be able to see the organs and not see them with lights in the way. I'll show you a little bit about that in a minute. A lot of people wanted perimeter trails and bike trails, multi-use trails, walking trails, jogging trails, and we've incorporated that into the project. A lot of people also wanted amphitheaters. We put picnic tables into the project location. Some people wanted splash pads. We don't have that shown. That wasn't on the GeoBond, but as you know, splash pads are pretty expensive. That may be something that could be built in the future, but we haven't included some of these items. But you can see a lot of really great stuff, and people really got into it. Sustainability will be a big part of what we do. There will be a food truck court. We'll obviously provide a lot of shade and trees. Wi-Fi may be in the future. Edible landscapes, we'll do that both edible for our feathered friends and perhaps people, and there will be some concessions in the project. So a lot of good direction from the public. We had 3 options at the 3rd public meeting that we proposed to people. And the one preferred option I'll get to towards the end of the presentation, but each of these options we purposely made quite different. They were based on the comments from people at the first meeting and the second meeting. The options were, one, a paseo option, which had a road as the main organizing feature through the project. Another was a greenway option, which had more like a pedestrian path as the organizing feature. And then the third option used the traditional park, the 10-acre park, as the connective tissue for the park. We called it the Parque option. So I'll go through all 3 briefly. We also had options for the roadway leading in from Camino Coyote and Sonoma Ranch Boulevard. And this one shows the option of the roadway leading in as on the downhill side of the power lines that are right here. And we placed some vegetation along those power lines to try to screen them a bit and also capture some water coming off the mountain right here, those small foothills. We'd also collect the water from the road and drop it into a bioswale, which is shown by this light green vegetation here. There'd probably be a gateway feature. As you can see, we placed the baseball fields on the south end of this option. The first phase would include baseball fields in this little notch in the desert, which is where the old gravel pit was. And then future fields over to the southeast of that. Parking kind of centrally located. The paseo goes all the way from the baseball fields through this road, which becomes the loop road, by the way, and then to concessions and a plaza area here, which kind of divides the soccer fields with the traditional park to the east, and then some Parks and Rec maintenance yards here and here, and expansion for the soccer fields here. Pickleball courts would be right in the middle of the plaza here, on the edge where the parking would occur. These are just some what we call precedent photos, which are just photos to show how or what the project would include. So it would include a xeric portion of the park as well as a grassier portion. It might have some amphitheater-like qualities to the grassier portion, and there might be a little stage that could be used for movies and concerts and that kind of thing if people wanted it. There'd probably be a gazebo or something like that in the plaza. It would be shaded and near the concessions, and there would definitely be baseball fields in this option, as with all of the options. The second one, the greenway option, uses a pedestrian path right here as the organizing feature that connects up the traditional park at the south end, which does have in this option a xeric sort of desert garden and a more traditional grassy park. The greenway would also be a connecting feature to the baseball fields and the soccer fields. And then parking would be placed along the northwest corner or part of the project, again, respecting that desert that I mentioned, which you can see on this aerial photo. And then a loop road that goes right here. We're also showing roundabouts at each end of that. And we're showing a little bit different arrangement on the entry road. We pulled it away from the power lines. We'd use the same sort of approach for capturing water and for using it as part of that greenway or part of that landscape along the road. But here it would treat water before it drops into the arroyo down here. And it gets the road further away from the power lines. We tried to respect the power lines in all of these options, by the way. This is showing the one power line. This is showing the other. And then the third goes right through here. So we tried to keep the parks and the soccer fields and just about everything off those power lines. In this one, the road does follow the power line right here. And we didn't put anything over here, but we squeezed the maintenance yard in between the power lines here. So this option is the second one. This shows some precedents for it. There might be exercise courts. There would be that sort of desert part of the park, that paseo, that greenway, that includes the trees, some play areas, and that kind of greenway option that kind of organizes this park, which happens to be in Phoenix, Arizona, is similar in some ways to what we're talking about. The third option actually used the park as the organizing feature. So this is the park. And you can see it has a lot of walkways through it. The concessions is right in the center. We separated the soccer fields in this option here and had the future soccer fields kind of off to the north and east over on this side. We kept the baseball complex towards the south. And then, of course, the park is the kind of the connection between all three parts of the facility, which is the baseball fields, the soccer fields, and the traditional park. Again, maintenance yard here and maintenance yard here. On this option, we actually went upstream or uphill into that desert of the power lines and tried to use trees to cover up that view towards the power lines and also to harvest water again off of the desert right in this location. What we got was a very interesting, I mean, there were just a lot of comments about the park. We did categorize those comments. I'm happy to show you those. It's not in this presentation, but I do have it saved aside on my desktop, and I can pull it up if you like after the presentation. So what I'd like to do now is show you the, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot about the precedents. This is some of the precedents we showed for that third option. It includes the pickleball courts, which would be shaded and lighted. Of course, the grassy part of a park and the desert part of the park. And then some kind of gazebo, you probably recognize this one. And more of the paths through the desert itself. The other thing I wanted to show you before I show you the other option is the final preferred option is this section. And what we did, this section is real. We took a section right through the desert where the park would be, and we're showing how it would be graded. And you can see this one hill for the neighborhoods to the west really does a good job of protecting the view towards the Oregon Mountains. And you can see that the park itself, the complex itself, would be pretty hidden by that great desert area just to the west of the park. So This is the preferred plan, and it's proposed at this point. Obviously, we haven't heard from the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, and we're still going through the public process. What we learned from the comments from the public and from Public Works and Parks was that they really liked a combination of 1 and 2. So that's what we tried to do with this option. It keeps the Paseo as a roadway here, but it also keeps the greenway here. So it's kind of an L-shaped connection. And what's interesting and I think good about that is that pedestrians can use the greenway option to get back and forth up to from the park to the baseball fields, to the pickleball courts, and up to the soccer fields. And it's not a very long walk. Cars can use the Paseo option, and we've also created, and it's hard to see on this scale, I'm happy to blow it up for you after the presentation if you like, but we put food truck courts here, and we kind of flanked, or excuse me, we did flank the greenway with parking on one side and the fields on the other. We're suggesting the pickleball courts on this end, not the ones on this end, would likely be the first phase. And we're showing an amphitheater-like area, some sand volleyball, basketball courts, playgrounds in the traditional park, along with the desert-like, more xeric area of the traditional park. It also shows 4 baseball diamonds. One would be kind of a league play, sort of central one with bleachers, and it would be the one used for the kind of tournaments and the final play-in tournaments. One of the soccer fields would also be used in a similar way. We haven't shown bleachers for them, and we're showing the future baseball and soccer fields. And we selected the option that goes closest to the arroyo for the roadway in. And then the gateway we put here with a smaller gateway at the entrance. And then we have a secondary road. We showed those on the other 3 options as well to that neighborhood. This would likely be used for emergency access only. It could at some point, as the complex grows, be used as more of a secondary road, but we're really looking at this road as the primary access right now. And Bridget, I don't know if you wanted to talk about the infrastructure or the roadway either in or surrounding the site before we go on to what phase 1 might be.
George, you pretty much covered it. We are looking at both of these options right now. Camino Coyote Lane, the one further south, is looking promising for being the main entry and working in conjunction with the public safety complex down at that near Sonoma Ranch Boulevard. Looking at a 2-lane road in with your entries and the low impact improvements, drainage improvements along there. And then we're looking at the road going up through that roundabout on that south side. And as you mentioned, with the first phase, that it's more likely that this one will be built, and the Sonoma Ranch, the one north, Sonoma Springs, would be more of a secondary and or for emergency route.
Hey, George, this is Tony Trevino.
Hey, Tony.
Members of the board, I want to say kind of just with what George mentioned, that the Camino Coyote being the main entrance, that's not set in stone yet. We are going to look at Sonoma Springs, as that is a collector already, which is a 3-lane road and a shorter route. So we're still going to, when we get the feasibility study based on utilities and everything, that might be our main entrance also. So that hasn't been set in stone. I just want to get that on record.
Yep.
That's correct. And that's all going to be based on the study, as Tony just mentioned.
We're also talking about, and Tony, we wanted to go over this with you, but we'll just sort of throw it out there. If there's enough money, the road in, whether it's this one or this one, could probably this one actually. I'll say probably not this one. Could be a 3-lane road because, as you know, when tournaments occur, there's a lot of traffic in when that occurs, and then a lot of traffic out when everyone leaves. So that 3rd lane could be used as a 2 lanes in and 2 lanes out kind of option. Just throwing it out there as a possibility.
Chair, members of the board, that's something we'll discuss further on in the design phase. I don't think that's pertinent to this master plan right now. Thank you.
And for Parks and Recreation, we did put one of the maintenance yards here just before the gateway, so you have good access to this end. And then we put the other one up in this location, which would also have good access to the complex as well. This one's a little more rectangular, as you can see, and we tried to screen that a little bit for the entry road experience for people coming in. So we're still working on what phase 1 would be. We had some meetings today on it. We had meetings yesterday on what phase 1 would be, and we're still organizing to try to make that more logical. So right now, we don't have phase 1 shown as a particular area necessarily, but we're thinking we can, and from doing our cost estimating, we'll definitely have 2 soccer fields. We'll definitely have 2 baseball diamonds, and we'll have the traditional park. We haven't yet worked out, and the 8 pickleball courts. We haven't yet worked out how this is all going to be connected. We're thinking that this part of the road would be built. This part of the road would be built here up to this parking area. And then the greenway up to the soccer fields, something like this would be built so that it connects in the soccer fields, the pickleball courts, the baseball diamonds, and the traditional park. So it'll kind of generally be here, but we haven't finished our deliberations on the infrastructure yet. What we do know, aside from that, is that it will include 2 soccer/football fields, multi-use fields, 2 baseball diamonds, the 8 pickleball courts, concessions, probably 1 with restrooms. We might be able to have 2. The traditional park, the 10-acre traditional park, and then of all of the infrastructure, which includes the trails, the entry roads, the parking, lighting, walkways, the maintenance yard, etc. Again, we aren't totally on the phase 1 for the infrastructure and the connective sort of tissue between all of this, but this is what we're thinking in the area generally. So next steps, obviously, we want to get your comments tonight. So we'll get your comments. We'll hold a 4th public meeting with City Council and the Mayor. What we're shooting for is the July 6th City Council meeting, and we will have phase 1 in a much more complete illustration than this. And we'll have the master plan layout completed based on your comments tonight, and Public Works and Parks and Recreation's comments. We're going to begin schematic design, actually. We feel comfortable enough with this that we're going to begin schematic design at the end of June. And then we'll be completing plans and bidding the project in the winter of 2020, 2021. And then construction will occur in 2021. So that's the end of the presentation. Again, happy to go back to any of these slides and happy to keep that one up if you'd like me to. And again, we could bring up those comments if you'd like to see some of those comments and how we aggregated them from the last round, those those 15 pages, 16 pages of comments. So with that, we're here for questions and discussion.
All right, thank you very much for the presentation. I think Ms. Schuler has a question for you. She's raising her hand.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just had a few maybe questions or comments. What the final plan that we're looking at right now, what is the total acreage of that facility planned out to be?
All of this,
Yes.
I believe we're at, Bridget, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we're at about 60 acres.
Okay.
The build out is closer to 75, the master plan build out, closer to 75.
Okay, thank you for that. And then my second question with that amount of acreage of the 75 acres, and I may have missed it just because I can't quite see, but where would you guys plan your concessions and restrooms on this final plan, seeing that you have 75 acres to cover?
Let me see if I can blow this up a bit for you, Ms. Schuler. Hold on 1 minute. Is that a little better?
Yes.
Okay. So what we're thinking is that there would be a concessions area kind of at each end, sort of the termini for the greenway. So there would be one here just across from the greenway that enters where the baseball diamonds are. There would be food truck courts right here along the Paseo. And then there would be another concessions area up here at the north end, of the baseball diamond here, and the termini for the greenway. So there's one here and one here. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Sure. Did you have any other questions?
Yes, sir. Cassie McClure has a question for you. Go ahead, Cassie.
Should I keep this up? Is that okay, Cassie?
That'd be great, actually.
Okay.
So I have a question. How long is phase 2 going to take you to get sort of where it's fully operable?
I think I'm going to have to let. I'll give you the short answer, and then maybe Tony or Sri.
That, George.
I'm sorry.
I'll answer that, George.
Yeah, sounds great, Tony.
Chair, members of the board. For right now, with the current gold bond phase, we have enough for. We have the amount specified. Hopefully, the next round in 2022, we can go out for another bond sale. We can begin the second phase of that. So with this one being construction being completed in 2022, and hopefully the gold bond sale includes the next phase, and we can continue the efforts on this master plan.
Excuse me.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have any other questions, board member?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions about it?
Yes, we have Mr. Montgomery, and then following him will be Mr. Engel. Go ahead, Mr. Montgomery.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The only question I have is in relation to the food truck area. You're referring to it as a food truck court. Is there specialized infrastructure that's going into that concept for the food trucks, like power stations or special parking stalls for the food trucks?
Since we're at a board member and Mr. Chair, since we're at a master plan phase, we aren't at the level of detail that I could answer that question totally. But we have done food truck courts for other cities and towns in New Mexico. An example would be in Los Alamos. We did one a couple of years ago for Ashley Pond Park. And we included power for the trucks. We included a special place for trucks to park during events. And we included little plazas or plazuelas in front of each food truck so that as people congregate in front of them, there'd be room and they wouldn't be parked in front of landscaping. You can kind of see that on this, and I apologize, it gets a little blurry when I blow it up. It's a PDF and that just happens, but you can kind of see that there's like a little pull out for the food trucks here. And then there's a bulb out, a pedestrian bulb out here and over in here. And then another little pull out for the trucks here. So it does get wider for the trucks there, and they would be designated parking for those food trucks or for service. For instance, a truck might park here to provide supplies for the concessions area here. The same would be applied over here. We didn't get to that level of detail to be able to supply supplies for the concessions area up at this end. But that's typical. I guess I'd answer that question with, typically we would supply power and a pullout for food trucks for this kind of a space. Did that answer your question, board member?
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, we have Mr. Engel, and then following him would be Mr. Cedillo.
Great.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Stan Engel. So I have a question about the public meeting comments where you mentioned edible landscape and that that was a possibility. My concern is liability. Suppose somebody eats something from a fruit tree and then gets sick. How would we try to mitigate that?
That's a very good question, and thanks for the question, board member Engel and Mr. Chair. We don't typically put edible landscaping in park projects or sports complexes unless there's a real buy-in from the Parks and Recreation Department. We have done it, and we just finished a project in the Albuquerque vicinity that includes fruit trees, but we wouldn't do that without any kind of buy-in. And I'm not sure that Parks and Recreation's ready to talk about that, but that wouldn't normally be the case. It was a comment. We would sometimes provide edibles for wildlife like birds to attract them depending on the area. We wouldn't want to attract them, for instance, to the Greenway because they could end up causing a real mess in an area like that as well. But edible landscapes are a touchy subject just because they can cause a mess even on the ground. Most Parks and Recreation departments aren't set up to harvest the fruit in time before it gets to be a mess. And so that's something that was a comment that we tried to address, but I wouldn't say that it's necessarily included in the project. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it just sounded like in your presentation, you made some positive statements about that.
Oh,
so.
Well, you know, it seems to be, I'll just say it seems to be happening more and more. We seem to, in our projects from El Paso to northern New Mexico, we've been hearing more and more people ask for edible landscapes. And, you know, there's more and more community farms and community gardens going in. So that may be why I gave a more positive outlook. I wasn't meaning to. My apologies if I did. And I don't know, Sonia or Franco, or would you like to respond to that in any way? We haven't talked about that per se. I just thought I'd throw that out there. And if not, that's fine. I just thought I'd.
Mr. Chair, this is Catherine Matthews.
Yes, ma'am.
Kathy.
I have to say, fruit trees for people can be problematic. Often in public landscapes, the people who are interested in harvesting the fruit can get a little excited and to cause damage to the trees and or harvest, before things are ready. And also they're tend to be quite water consumptive. I think we'd have to think very carefully about including that kind of amenity in this sort of public space. There are maybe other locations where that or having fruit trees and the like would be better, for instance, next to a community garden or in sort of a more close-in kind of area. It would be my general opinion that including fruit trees in this type of landscape would not be the best idea.
Thanks, Kathy. I knew I thought you'd probably have that kind of comment, and I just wanted to throw it out there. Did that help answer the question? Board Member Engel?
Someone just said their computer crashed. It might have been him.
Oh.
I know Mr. Cedillo's been waiting patiently.
Great.
To either make a comment or question. Go ahead, Mr. Cedillo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, Mr. Chair and board members. David Cedillo, Interim Public Works Director, for the record. I did want to address the public comment or statement that came in that we would be using GO bond funding for the roadways. We will not be using GO bond funding for the roadways. The city has acquired municipal gross receipts tax bonds to cover the roadway and drainage construction of the project. So I just wanted to make sure that that was on the record and address the public comment. Thank you.
Wonderful, because that was going to be my question. And is it Radonovich? Is that how you say your name, Mr. Radonovich?
That's Radnovich.
Radnovich, excuse me. Yeah, I was going to ask that question, but thank you, Mr. Cedillo, for pointing that out, because that was going to be one of my questions. And then also on the phase one, actually, just the phase one, can you pull that up for us?
I sure can. And let me just point out just briefly, what we're thinking those road funds would be from the roundabout to Sonoma Ranch, or from the roundabout to Sonoma Springs. And let me get that back to the right level. There. And let me go back there. And let me blow that up a little bit just so we can see it a little better. Oops. Okay. And you had a question about the phasing?
How many acres is just that first phase, phase one?
We don't, I can give probably around 30, but I can't give you the exact number, and I'm not trying to evade the question, but I can't give you the exact number because we haven't yet determined what this interstitial space would be and how big it would be. So once we have figured this part out, the connections and the parking, I can be a lot more precise, but it's around 30 acres. It'll be generally around 30 to 40 probably, including the walkways and the connection and all of that.
And with the budget and the aspect of what's allocated, is this what you think you can present, or this with the parking and the infrastructure and the roads and everything together?
Could you rephrase the question? I'm not, I didn't follow.
On the phase one, so with the GO bond appropriated with the 6.5 million, what aspect do you think can be completed in that dollar amount?
Oh, definitely, I believe that we, and Bridget, feel free to chime in. I believe we'll be able to build this road. It may not have, this brown, let me go back to the full build out for a second. We're showing this Paseo Road in a special pavement. It might be colored concrete, something like that. For phase one, we'll be able to build the road, but we may not be able to do the special pavement. We should be able to do the food trucks and the kind of streetscape along here. We should be able to do the greenway, albeit it probably won't be as big as it might be in full build out. We will be able to do parking, obviously, here and probably here, maybe here. And we'll build the road that goes up to the parking here. So, and I'm not trying to evade the question at all. We're just not quite there yet on the costs. But generally speaking, phase one would be something like what I'm going to outline here. It would go around the soccer fields. It would go down to this roundabout. It would include the traditional park, part of this road. It would go down this section of the diamond, and then back up to the soccer fields. So generally speaking, this. We just don't have the exact layout yet, and we'll have that actually early next week. And we'd be happy to send it out to everyone after we vetted it with Parks and Recreation and the Public Works Department. Oh, I'm sorry. And it would include the maintenance yard for Parks and Recreation. Apologies for that. So, and I didn't mention it, but in that area that I just outlined, it would also include the 8 pickleball courts. We just don't have that detail yet.
Okay. I know everything's early and there's been 3 different designs and a combination of a couple designs, and in the aspect, I know it's nice to hear Mr. Cedillo talk about the roadway funding to address that public comment. And then it also would be nice in the aspect if you could put it out too in the aspect of addressing the parking, because I know parking does get a little hairy when there is tournaments, be it here, El Paso, other towns. And so if there's a capacity number that you could fit in the parking with the existing phase one that you're showing right now, and just available for public comment, that would be, or public review, that would be nice.
Great. Yeah, I will say something about the parking. What we're thinking right now is that it will likely include this area. Let me go back to the overall master plan real quick. It'll likely include this area, and this area. We'll primarily concentrate on this. However, we may have to make part of it asphalt, depending on the costs, obviously. We only have the $6.5 million. And part of it might be further away from the complex, gravel or base course or something like that. We just haven't determined that exact number. We're at a master plan stage. Once we get in the schematic design, we'll be able to be much more accurate on that. If that makes sense.
Yes, thank you very much. And you kind of said it in a nutshell. We're in a master plan phase, And then we need to work the schematics afterwards. We just need to get this approved and say, here's a master plan and move it forward.
Yep. And by the way, we're happy to come back to the Parks and Rec Advisory Board as we go through design periodically to give you updates. And what we'd really like to include in the traditional park in phase one, just throwing it out there, we're still playing with this, is the volleyball courts, some skate park type improvements. They'd be just skate park nodes, playgrounds, and basketball courts. So we're still looking at all of that. And some sort of amphitheater area that would be a kind of grassy area for some movies in the park, something like that.
Wonderful. Still a couple more questions or comments. Ms. McClure, go ahead.
Oh, we're kind of having a chat on the side here, but
I see that. I mean, information overload for me.
I know. I got an email from Gregory, who I think is watching, and wanted to kind of ask a little bit more about water use. And I guess that is a good question, like how much water use is going to be happening and where they're tying in. So, yeah.
We can talk to that. There'll be and I'll let Bridget talk more about this part, but there will be utilities going to the site, and water will be one of them. It'll likely come up this road, but it could come up this road. We haven't done a water budget yet. Once we determine what phase one is and what the future phases water needs will require, we'll do a water budget for the entire complex so that, as an example, if we have a main line going down the Greenway or a main line going through the baseball complex, that it will be big enough to be expandable for future phases. The additional soccer fields, football fields, the additional baseball fields, and so forth. The main grassy parts of the park will generally be the fields themselves and the central part of the traditional park, but we'll have a very xeric, very low water and environmentally appropriate part of the park, and all of the areas in between will likely be more xeric as well. We have to respect water use in the desert, as you know, and we can't overload the system with just more grass. So again, it's master plan stage. We haven't determined all of that, but we'll definitely be using grass for the fields and for a portion of the traditional park, likely not in other places. And I don't know, Kathy, if you want to weigh in on that at all. We, as you know, we haven't gotten down to that level of detail, but thought I'd offer that.
Hey, George, this is Tony Trevino again.
Oh, hey, Tony.
Chair, members of the board, in regards to the connections to utilities, that is part of the study that Wilson is doing for us at this time. Again, on Sonoma Springs, at the end of that roadway, there's already some water, gas, and sewer mains that are capped off at that area that we can tie into. And that is probably going to be the closest and most feasible way of us to connect to utilities for this area. And of course, those discussions will be happening a little further on in design with the utility staff, joint utilities, and also regarding reclaimed water from the treatment plant to the south to see if that's feasible or not. So those discussions will be happening soon with the joint utility department.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Trevino. I think, did Mr. Cedillo, did you also have your hand raised a little bit ago as well and wanted to make a comment? I know there's kind of the side chat going on, but I think Mr. Cedillo had his hand raised too, and Mr. Trevino.
Mr. Chair, board members, I forgot to lower my hand after my statement.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
And then with the comments of the water, also one of the options, I know initial cost slightly higher, but in the long term and water conservation is also for baseball, softball, slow pitch softball, fast pitch softball. I anticipate the fields can be multi-use as the others are in town, but also is in the looking into artificial turf in baseball and soccer.
Let me respond to that a bit, Mr. Chair. I believe that was Mr. Chairman that was speaking.
Yes, sir. Sorry.
And that's okay. I can't see totally. You might notice that we are actually showing the fields on the west side a little smaller than the fields on the east side in the baseball complex. Not so much in the multi-use fields in the soccer area. Yes, they will be multiple sizes so that multiple events can be staged at the park. So and at the complex. So we're planning that into our thinking with the project. Did that answer your question?
Yes, in the aspect of baseball, softball, and other age group to be able to use the field. And then the other one was in the aspect of concern about water and the water usages using artificial turf.
Yes, you mentioned synthetic turf. Synthetic turf, and we haven't talked about that very much with staff. We decided to go the green grass direction. I think there was a consensus on that. Synthetic turf is very expensive, as you might be aware. It can be as high as $20 a square foot. It's usually as at least in the $10 to $15 a square foot range. Each of these diamonds runs about $350,000 each, as one example, and each soccer field runs about the same when you include the goals, all of the bases on baseball fields, the infield and so forth, fencing. So we don't think that for phase one that synthetic turf is in the cards. It's a very expensive proposition. There is a little more cleanup involved in synthetic turf too. As dust storms occur, synthetic turf needs to be cleaned up, as you know. And so right now, the budget won't allow for synthetic turf in our opinion. And we're going towards green grass fields, Bermuda grass, but still green grass fields. Kathy, did you want to mention anything about that, or anyone else? Or Tony?
Mr. Chair, I tend to agree that we need to go with Bermuda grass. It can be very cost effective to maintain, and even artificial turf requires irrigation to keep it cool enough to play on. So it's generally Parks and Rec's recommendation that we go with natural turf.
Okay, thank you. And then this is an action item. Are there any more comments or questions? And I think in this aspect, I think in the action item is to approve the presentation and pass it on forward to get the ball rolling on the rest of the presentation and the rest of the development. Any further comments or questions?
Would you like me to unshare my screen?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the presentation as presented to move forward on to City Council.
Second.
It's been motioned to accept the presentation as presented, to move on to approve it and present to City Council. Call a question and discussion. Any discussion, further questions? Who do we still have? I know there's been a few people, computer crashes, I guess, in District 4. Mr. Engel's been in and out. Is Mr. Mueller still here, or Mr. Montgomery still here?
I am.
Okay, just making sure. Mr. Engel, are you still here? He's been the one that's been logging in and out of the meeting. Okay, no further question or discussion. Motion's been made for the presentation as presented tonight. Been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Montgomery,
Aye.
Ms. McClure,
Aye.
Mrs. Schuler,
Aye.
Stan. He's not here. Hazel, since he dropped out, do we still have a quorum to pass this? Or Ms. Delgado?
Mr. Chair, this is Sonia. So with you, there's 4. Mr. Engel, I asked him to see if he could call in over the phone. He's been having issues every time he tries to log in, it's crashing his computer. So he's
Okay.
going to try that next, I think. So he might be calling in.
Well, I
But
can
with you-
make the 4th vote in this case if needed.
Yes.
Okay. In favor, aye. So motion passes. But in the aspect of the motion passes, kind of taking into consideration the parking, I think it's Mr. Cedillo. It's nice to hear that the roadways are different. And then also on the presentation, maybe take off the money that I know on the presentation, it goes into 2 aspects of 1, the facility, and 2, the roadway. But thank you very much for the presentation and questions from everybody and comments from Public Works. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome, Mr. Chair.
Moving on to the next item on the agenda is the Parks and Sports Courts improvements. I believe Mr. Trevino, are you going to present on this one?
Mr. Chair, this is Tony Trevino for the record, and yes, sir, I will. I will share my screen now.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, for the record again, my name is Tony Trevino. I am the Interim Deputy Director of Public Works. We're here to present to you the second time for the GeoBond, again from 2018, Parks and Sports Fields Improvements and Additions. The agenda today, we'll go over the background, some project information, and then we'll take questions at the end. A little bit of background again, it was approved in August 21st of 2018. The approved project, this particular question was a park and sports fields improvements and additions, which was a total of 16.9 million, which included Desert Trails Park, Young Park, Apodaca, Metro Verde, Four Hills, Hill Rise, Cardone Park, Frank O'Brien, Klein Park, Benavides, Lions, and like you guys saw last week was Hadley. We're moving forward with Unidad Park, some dog parks, and what you just saw was the East Mesa Public Recreation Complex. All these parks were included in this question of 16.9 million. Today, you'll be hearing about the Desert Trails, Young, Apodaca, and basketball, tennis, and pickleball courts. The past meetings we had one for Desert Trails. It was a public meeting held at the Doniana Branch Community College on the East Mesa on January 23rd, 2020. We had a meeting prior with you all to the Parks and Rec Advisory Boards for the sports courts on February 20th, 2020. Following that meeting, there was some concerns from the tennis and pickleball communities regarding Lions Park and Apodaca Park. So we had some additional meetings with the tennis group on March 4th, 2020 on site, and the Apodaca group on March 5th, 2020. At these meetings, we discussed our prior scope of work for these courts, and they addressed their concerns, gave some ideas, and we have incorporated them into our scope to move forward. The first court I want to go over is the Benavides Community Center. This would be a remove and replace court. Just due to the existing condition, we're going to remove the existing court in its entirety, install a reinforced 5-inch concrete slab and restripe. Several courts are going to just have some crack repairs. These are the Four Hills Park basketball court, the Hillrise Park basketball court, the Young Park tennis courts, the Cardone Park basketball courts, Klein Park basketball courts, and the Papin Center basketball court. And what this is, we're going to go in there and with the size of the cracks, depends how much we're going to go, then clean them out, regrout them and reseal them. And then again, restripe them to match the existing condition. The Metro Verde basketball court is kind of a different animal. It was built recently, however, it was not done to allow proper drainage on the court. You can see in this photo where the rainfall is just kind of sitting there in the middle. So on this certain court, we're going to have to remove the existing fence and replace it. We're going to install a new fiber reinforced concrete pad above the existing one, dowel it appropriately, tied into the bottom slab. However, this will be a tapered slab to address the drainage and allow for the runoff to flow to the south. We'll do the typical acrylic surfacing and striping, and we're going to have to tie in the 6-inch sidewalk on the east side for ADA access. The Apodaca Park pickleball courts. With this court, our goal is to repair the cracks. We're going to expand the court dimensions from its existing 120 foot by 116 to 132 feet by 128. In discussions with the pickleball group, there was concerns about spectator seating, some benches along the sides, and there's also concerns of them, some incidences with them kind of running into the fences on the side of there, and they requested some additional room along the outside of the court. So we're going to increase that by 8 foot in some of the directions. The resurfacing of the court, as you're aware, this was one of the comments that was brought up by Mr. Carroll regarding the 21st century flooring of this court. We're still working with Parks and Rec to kind of determine what flooring would be appropriate for this area. However, the good thing is whether we go with the requested surfacing or we go with the typical 3-layer of acrylic surfacing and colored, the budget isn't much of a difference. So we're just working with Parks and Rec now to see if with the maintenance, the upkeep, and the durability of this material in this environment. I know there have been some installed in the northern New Mexico. However, here in the Southwest, a little further south, it's a different environment, UV rays and so forth. So we're looking into that further. So whichever option we go with on the flooring, we can accommodate in the budget. So I think we're safe to say that we'll look into that further. We're going to be removing and replacing the existing fence due to the expansion of the courts. We'll remove and replace the lighting due to the expansion of the courts. The nets and posts will have to be removed and reinstalled and relocated with new nets and fences just due to the expansion of the courts to allow proper separation and to convert the tennis court into a pickleball court, 4 pickleball courts. The courts will be restriped for pickleball to United States Pickleball Association specifications. And again, we've had several meetings with the pickleball group and a specific meeting with Mr. Carroll with the city managers to discuss his options, his recommendations, and we are looking forward and moving to kind of accommodate those and see if that would be the most feasible way to address this project. So Apodaca Park playground cover. Here, there's a playground structure on the west side of the park. So we're going to be installing a tri-cell shade of 40 by 40 by 40, as you can see in the picture, and it will be oriented kind of as shown over the structure. The Lions Park tennis courts, again, we met with the tennis ball group after the Parks and Rec Advisory Board meeting and walked all 12 courts with them. We came to the conclusion, and kind of based on the current condition of it, that we are going to have to strip off the entire existing surfacing and resurface it. There's several cracks that will have to be regrouted and fixed. will we apply the 3-layer acrylic surfacing and restrike the courts back to US Tennis Association standards. Here you see the Young Park shade structures. These are all the proposed shade structures that need to be replaced or install new ones. This is the main goal of all the shade structures there. Based on budgetary numbers, when we get a little further into the project and start the final design, we can see which ones can actually be done, but I am anticipating they will all get done. And lastly, here's the Desert Trails Park, which is in the East Mesa kind of a Summer Ranch. This was previously analyzed by a consultant of several areas that have erosion issues, trail failures, and so forth. So we are going to go and address those areas of concern to prevent future erosion problems and fix some trail areas that are causing a safety issue. This is kind of an overall map of the entire park with the trails. And here you'll see kind of a blow up of what this is. We have the trail, and all these symbols are designated on the construction drawings of what these trails, whether it's silt fence, some ponds, some zuni bowls. There's several different measures of erosion that erosion protection that we'll be constructing on this trail. With that, I will leave it for questions or discussions from the group.
Does anyone have any specific questions? Thank you, Mr. Trevino. In the aspect of with Mr. Carroll and his presentation and kind of working up from surface to budget, how far is he with working into the city and being able to do what they would like to do at a cheaper rate?
Chair, members of the board, he did provide us his cost estimate. We did let him know that procuring work at the city is a little bit different. We have to pay state wage rates and so forth, but his cost estimate was close to us. However, we also are going to address some of the concerns by the rest of the pickleball committee group who want the expansion of the courts, and there's other concerns by other players who wanted some of these improvements done. So we are accommodating a little bit more than what Mr. Carroll had asked for and trying to address what some of the other members of the pickleball group had wanted. I think the biggest difference was the flooring that Mr. Carroll had asked, and we are still looking into that. But however, like I said, the cost difference between the surfacing of acrylic to that proposed flooring is not much of a difference, like $9,000 difference. So we're still looking into that. As if it's feasible, we will put that into the project.
Thank you. Is there two different pickleball associations, or is there a Las Cruces Pickleball Association? When you say there's some say this, then Mr. Carroll presents this. Are there two different affiliations within the pickleball groups?
My understanding is there's one group. Mr. Carroll did reach out to us afterwards to bring his ideas separately.
Okay. And again, this is an action item, and again, everything is kind of in master plan with looking at everything with the greatest possibilities and then cutting it down, as you said, for budget. Any other board members have any questions or comments?
Can we motion to approve to send this on?
Yes, you can. You can make a motion to approve and
Motion to approve the Parks and Sports Courts Improvement Plan.
Second.
motion's been made to approve the Parks and Sports Courts Improvement Plans and seconded. It was made by Mrs. Mueller. I'm sorry, Mrs. McClure, and seconded by Mr. Montgomery. call question, discussion. Any more discussion or questions at this time? And I believe Stan is on, yes, Mr. I believe Stan is on.
First, this is Stan.
Stan, can you, Mr. Engel, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, so there's the quorum without me making a vote. So the motion's been, you're hearing the meeting as we were talking?
I just noticed my phone number is on the YouTube stream.
Motion's been made and approved and seconded to present the Parks and Sports Courts improvements. Do you approve? Or any questions?
Aye.
Is that a yes from Mr. Engel and a yes from Mrs. Schuler?
Yes.
Yes.
And Mr. Montgomery? Yes?
Yes.
Aye.
There-
Yeah.
Was that a yes?
That's a yes.
All right. Motion passes. Approved Parks and Sports Courts improvements. Thank you very much, Mr. Trevino, for your presentation. And like I said, Mr. Carroll's done a lot of work in kind of working with those two, the pickleball community and the tennis community were very heavily involved and had a lot of interest in putting their input in. So Public Works, Ms. Delgado, everybody, thank you for listening to them and spending the time. And there's two good groups that vocal and also use and also upkeep and respect the fields when they're using them, or courts in this case. So thank you all.
Chairman, the board, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
All right, now we're moving forward. So one more action item, and that's to elect the board elections in the aspect of electing a new chair and vice chair. At this time, I would like to open nominations for chair of the Park and Recs Advisory Board.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to nominate yourself as chairman again.
Mr. Chair, this is Stan Engel. I second.
There's been motion to nominate myself as chair in a second. I would like to nominate someone else. So does anyone else like to make any other nominations?
Mr. Chair, I was going to nominate Ms. McClure, but I don't think she would be here to accept it, so.
That's what I was thinking too, in that aspect. We can go ahead and vote on this one, or vote on to table it possibly. Or we can table the board elections because actually we don't have a quorum. It's only 1, 2, 3, 4, and it'd be a quorum if I vote. Correct, Ms. Delgado?
Mr. Chair, this is Sonia Delgado, Parks and Recreation Director. You do have a quorum right now. However, you can table it, especially if you were going to nominate someone who had to leave. I know that Ms. McClure had to leave by 7:30. And then you're
Right.
also missing 2 other board members. And we did try to get Ms. Zaylor on, but we had some issues, but we will get her situated for July. We thought we had it and it didn't quite work out. So it's up to the board how you would like to proceed.
Mr. Chair, given the situation, I'd ask or move to table the nominations and vote until our next meeting.
I will second that.
Okay, and I will third that, but we'll do the formal. All those, any questions or discussions on tabling it in the aspect so we can have Ms. Zaylor, Ms. McClure, and everyone. Thank you, Megan and Schuler and Mr. Engel for nominating and seconding me, but I also think we need to get everyone involved and have their say in the situation. So motion's been made and seconded to table the board elections until the July meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, so motion passes. We'll put the board elections on the July Park and Rec Advisory Board meeting.
Mr. Chair, this is Sonia again. You still
Yes.
have a motion on the floor. You had the
Oh, yes,
first
Mrs.
one.
Mueller,
You'll have to kill that one.
would you like to make a motion to rescind your motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we rescind my nomination of you as chairman.
Second.
Thank you. All right. Motion's been made to rescind the motion for me as chairman and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, Megan, aye.
Aye.
All right. Motion passes. So, awkward.
So, Mr. Chair, do we need to go through the motion of tabling again, now that we were out of order?
I think we're fine. Hazel, you got it in the minutes that we rescinded the motion and then made the
Yes.
motion to table the board elections until the July meeting.
Yes, I got the rescind and the other nomination.
All right.
Table.
Thank you. Now, moving on to discussion items, I know kind of a touchy subject and been different things here, there, and everywhere, but I wanted to have Ms. Delgado speak on it because I know I hear different things and I want her to voice what's going on and why it's going on, and this would be another platform for her to discuss it, and that's in regards to the Park and Recreation's reopening phase. Related to obviously COVID and the different closures. So, Ms. Delgado.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Sonia Delgado, Director of Parks and Recreation, for the record. I don't have my video on because we're having some problems. I'm streaming and my battery's running low. So I'm going to try and conserve it as much as I can. With regards to the reopening phase, what we did is we had presented a plan to City Council that basically laid out a phase 1, which was also titled green, phase 2, yellow, and then phase 3 and beyond were red. And the reason we chose those colors was green was we're ready to go right now with those facilities. Yellow, they could be coming down the way, and red, we weren't anywhere near having them. We based our plan, we ran it right alongside the governor's orders. We also had the state epidemiologists take a look at our plan to see if we were moving in the right direction, if things made sense. They did like the plan. We also were told that we set it up very nicely. We put a lot of thought into that, and it seemed to be working really well. So as of right now, the governor is saying that we can't have groups larger than 5. and to keep facilities, activities, and programs that promote gathering of groups and mixing of families. So with that being said, that's why the parks got closed down in the very beginning. Now that was a difficult decision. And I believe the mayor had done it, started it with the Easter weekend, because that is a big weekend that our parks are utilized. And we have to remember that our parks are not only utilized by the community members of Las Cruces, but also the surrounding community and El Paso. I have received several calls from people in other little towns around us asking when our parks are going to be open so they can bring their families. El Paso Parks and Rec is closed down. I think they just reopened their parks now, I believe, or at least some of them. But we do get a lot of individuals that come our way, specifically looking for the bigger parks. They like to come down to La Llorona, and they like to have large gatherings here. So that was one of those issues. On the first phase with the green, it was basically specialty parks, some specialty parks that were chosen, and we had limited days and times for their use, and also trails. We mostly hit the adult population because in speaking with the state and the epidemiologists and listening to everything that was going around through CDC, the NRPA, which is the National Recreation Park Association, going through their chats and talking to other directors and administrators throughout having to deal with this. The adults seem to understand and get that they had to keep themselves 6 feet apart, could understand that much easier than our youth, because as we know, when kids get together, they like to play, which is great, and they like to share, which is also great. But at this point in time, that wasn't a good thing. And so we started with some of the adults, and we started with specialty areas that were very specific. So we had the shooting range, we had the RC airport, we had the RC remote control track, of course, our trails. We put signage at all these facilities. We opened up some of our pickleball courts and every other tennis court at Lions. And that was the only tennis court we opened. Then we left that open for approximately 2 weeks. We had staff that would go in and open and close the gates because we had limited time. We had it early morning, and then we would close it during the day and then open it up in the evening. It was approximately 3 days during the week. And after 2 weeks, we added another day because our numbers were steadily going down through the state. We listen in on the governor's press conference every 2 weeks. We take a look at what's going on. We listen to what she has to say and whether or not she's encouraging gathering yet or keeping those numbers down. And so that we adjust our plan accordingly. So this last time we did open up another day for those individuals on the specialty. We also opened up some of our specialty courts to go back to their regular hours. And then on this phase 2, we opened a park in each district, and that started on Monday, this past Monday on the 16th, 15th. And that seems to be going okay right now. The governor should be speaking again, I believe, next week. We'll listen in to see what's going on. We'll keep an eye on the parks. We've got team members out there that will go take a head count, see if people are wearing their masks, keeping their social distancing. In some areas, they're doing well. In others, not as good as we would hope. And if we continue to see our numbers go down and hold the line, basically, then we can start opening up other things. We don't want to do it in a big rush. And that was something that epidemiologists had also said, that they liked that we were going slow and steady, and that we were really taking into account what was going on. During this entire time, we've also been assisting with food boxes with the senior programs. We're giving out dinner meals for our kids over at the Safe Haven facility and Frank O'Brien. We've also put together some recreational virtual programs and activities, and I'll let Phil talk about them, and I'll have Phil and Robert talk about them a little bit later during their comments. And then we're also looking at possibly opening up the summer recreation program. However, it'll be very, very limited. Right now, the ratio is 1 to 5. There's a lot of issues that we need to make sure that we can deal with. A lot of regulations coming with that. They need to have their own space. The groups cannot mix. They have to have their own equipment, their own sets of bathrooms. They have to stay with the same supervisor or camp counselor, whichever you want to call them, the entire time. Because of that, we only have access to our facilities, which is very limited. In the summertime, if you recall, we usually get into the schools. Well, the schools are completely shut down. We do not have access to them. They're trying to get them ready when they hope to open up school later on in this year. So they're not available to us. So we only have a few facilities. They're not very large. And so I know that Robert and his team have been looking at how many we could put into our facility. When we go from having thousands of kids in the summertime in our programs down to less than 100, that makes it really, really tough. And so we're hoping that Las Cruces continues to flatten the curve and continues to bring that number down, so that the governor will relax some of those orders and open it up a little bit, so we can have, so a lot more kids in our programs can have a little more access. But we're not exactly sure if and when that'll happen. But like I said, we are adjusting our program as we go. Robert's team is ready once we give them that go ahead, and once we have an opportunity to have a few more kids in there. So we're still working that angle. And again, I will let the administrators give more specifics on the programs and activities that are coming out virtually when their comments come up. And that's it in a nutshell. If you have any questions or any comments, or if you need additional information, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you very much. I know it's difficult, uncharted waters and everything that we're going through right now in the aspect of COVID. And I know even personally with my sons in baseball, and if we look at Arizona as an example, kind of some of the Arizona opening up in baseball tournaments in the aspect of two of my boys were supposed to be playing baseball last weekend, got halfway there, and the per day case numbers are increasing, plus the hospitalization rates in Arizona. So for the next few months, we're still going to be playing this game, open and close, and it's just what it's going to be, and people are going to complain. And but in the aspect of safety of numbers, it's what's going to be needed. So that's my 2 cents, and I thank you guys for doing what you're doing. Does any other board members have questions for Ms. Delgado? All right, moving on to another information discussion on the aspect of 4th of July parade. I know we got emails earlier on different virtual parades and things, and what do you have planned for us, Mr. Katnack?
Good evening, Mr. Chair and board members. Can you guys hear me? I'm using my phone, having a little bit of trouble with the computers.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so 4th of July, with the inability to gather in large crowds, we've had to, as you're aware, cancel the electric light parade, and as well as the community concert that we partner with NMSU to put on the last year and the years before that over at the High Noon Soccer Field and here at Hadley Complex. So those events are out. We are going to have a virtual electric photo parade, and we are asking for submissions for people to send in pictures. We're working with our PIO department, but to send in pictures of their heroes and 4th of July themed. Could be essential workers, it could be our first responders, the police, the people who are keeping our restaurants going, our truck drivers, whoever they choose as their hero. So we're replacing the electric light parade with a virtual electric photo parade, and that ought to be pretty neat. We are asking that the Parks and Rec board judge these photos as they come in. We will be giving prizes, and we're just trying to keep the tradition of the electric light parade going as we move through this pandemic. We'll also be we are looking into having a 4th of July display, and that will be a spectator-free 4th of July display. We'll try to shoot the fireworks from an area that is visible to as many areas of our community that we can get, so that they can watch from their front porch. We are discouraging mass gatherings, so we're working on the final details for that. We'll put out a news release whenever we're sure of everything, and we'll probably just tell the community what area of the sky to be looking at, so we can discourage those mass gatherings. So we're trying to keep the 4th of July spirit up. We think a 4th of July firework display is very important, so we're moving forward with that. The electric 5K run will be canceled this year. It was growing big. Last year they had over 300 5K runners and over 100 fun run runners. I think total it was close to 500 participants total, which is a very good run for Las Cruces. We look forward to having that back again. So we're just looking into what we can do virtually to try to keep the community together and see how we can work through this. And with that, if you guys have any questions.
I don't have any questions regarding that. Any other board members have questions regarding 4th of July? Mr. Katnick, on one aspect, were you, I think I saw somewhere along the way, are you guys looking at different opportunities for virtual music in the park?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I'm here at Mearshite tonight and we're recording a concert. So we'll be posting.
Oh, okay. Good. Okay, moving on. Project updates. If Mrs. Matthews, do you have some updates to report on?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the opportunity. I wanted to talk about a few projects that we have recently completed. We have been working on the memorial for Councilor Pedroza. That's at Lions Park near the tennis courts. The project is complete. The area is landscaped with gravel mulch and plants, including irrigation. We've installed sleeves that are ready for the installation of the plaque itself on its frame. We haven't installed that frame yet because we're anticipating having an unveiling of the memorial when Councilor Pedroza's family can be present. But the project is complete and we're just waiting for our situation to improve so that we can have people gather to participate in that unveiling. Another project that has recently been completed is the lighting of the multi-use fields at Provencio Van Dam. It's an exciting project. It's been a long time coming. It'll make those fields eminently more usable. The lighting is up and running. It's been tested and an audit has been performed that verifies that there is an even 30-foot candle lighting illumination over the entire area of both of those full-size adult fields. One other project that is completed in and of itself, we still have a little bit more work to accomplish in the vicinity, is the Benavides Community Center Park Playground. That project is complete with new playground equipment, new engineered wood fiber safety surfacing, and rubberized safety surfacing in some areas. Our next steps will be to replace some of the benches in the vicinity, some of the picnic tables in the vicinity, and to install more trees with irrigation. I just wanted to highlight those projects that we've completed recently. And so our special projects team is working very hard with our colleagues in parks to still get projects done. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the update. Any questions on any of the projects that you just mentioned? All right, moving forward to staff comment. Any other comments or questions with the Ms. Matthews' presentation? Okay, then moving on to staff comment. Let's start with Mr. Nunez. Haven't heard from him tonight.
Good evening, board members and fellow staff members. I'd like to give a few updates in regards to some programming. Our juvenile citation program is currently going on with virtual classes with all of our participants. We started that up approximately the beginning of May, and those have been going very well. We're doing assessments as well as classes and follow-ups with all of our participants. So we adapted very well to this, and actually our participants, the youth, have adapted very well with this. With our Keep Las Cruces Beautiful program, we have our graffiti team out there. Our city was hit pretty hard with graffiti over the last few months, so they have been busy working 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, trying to clean up all that negative graffiti that's out there and try to beautify the community. We're also providing bags, equipment, gloves, and some other equipment that is able for our residents to gather litter. So we've had some inquiries into supplies and equipment that we can offer to our residents. So we've been getting that out to them as much as possible here recently. And as Ms. Delgado mentioned, our summer programs, we've set a plan, we've sent that out. We are actually just in discussions today with my program supervisors, and we are really hoping that we can offer some type of program this summer to the youth, and in certainly a safe and healthy manner. But we're also looking at recreation outside the box and different things that we can do in the very near future, and then as we move forward into the fall months as school starts up. So we're certainly trying to stay busy. We are also every Friday giving out educational packets along with popcorn and other items over at our Safe Haven and at Franco Brand Papin to any youth that are interested in picking up on Fridays. As she mentioned, we are serving dinners. We're partnering with FYI to serve these dinners, and staff actually just gave me numbers. And in the 3 weeks, a little over 3 weeks, we have given out close to 3,000 dinners at those two locations, Safe Haven and Frank O'Brien. So food security is a big issue in our community. So we want to make sure that that the youth are fed Monday through Friday with a nutritious meal. And that is all I have at this time. Thank you, and you all stay safe and healthy.
You too. Wonderful work. Wonderful work. Thank you. You have a lot going on even in this time. It's even more, and thinking outside the box and doing a wonderful job. Any other questions for Mr. Nunez? All right. Mr. Granillo, do you have any comments or other staff comments? Just jump in here as we go along.
Good evening, board chair and board members. I hope you can hear me. I can't pull my video up because my battery's about to die. But I kind of wanted to give just a couple comments on what we've been going through this past 3 months. Of course, just like everyone else, park staff got sent home towards the end of March, and For the last 3 months, it's really derailed our schedules, but I want to give kudos to my staff because, you know, after assessing everything, after we've come back on a limited schedule, it seems like we're about a week behind and we're gaining ground on that. So that just goes to show the hard work that they put through, you know, week after week, month after month before this hit. And I'd also like to thank Robert and Phil because, you know, when we were getting back on track, you know, Robert's staff and Phil's staff were handing out the meals, as Robert mentioned. I couldn't help a lot there, but I did provide a truck to deliver meals on a larger scale. And Phil's staff helped me in the parks, monitoring all the openings that Sonia talked about earlier. So it's been a good collective team effort. I couldn't get a lot done without those two. And also Kathy, as she mentioned, the projects, they're still continuing to get done with my staff and her staff, you know, working hard together. And also, you know, I'd like to thank Sonia because she's relayed a lot of our issues to upper management and had some good conversations with us, you know, during this time to keep us all, you know, reading from the same book at least. You know, it's hard to be on the same page right now, but I think we're all doing a pretty good job. So, you know, I just want to thank everybody involved, and it's good to see the Parks and Rec board tonight. So hopefully we get back to normal pretty soon and we can have some updates in person. But I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about how we were, how we're trying to keep up with this, and staff is learning a lot. You know, one of the positive items that we've come across is we weren't too mobile. So now that we had to have meetings from home and talk a lot more via technology, my staff has learned how to do that on a larger scale. So, you know, I'm proud of them making those adjustments. So again, you know, that's all I had. And if anybody has any questions for me, you know, I'm here to answer as best as I can. Thank you.
And thank you for all you do and working with them as well. I know. And they would say the same thing to you with all the thank yous, and I'm sure they will following up. So who's next?
Board members, this is Phil Katnack, Recreation section. As you guys hopefully are aware, the Regional Aquatic Center and Fringer Pool are open for lap swim. The walking channel is open at the Regional Aquatic Center as well. The downside of that is we're only allowed to have one person per lane right now, so that limits our capacity. The upstairs at the Regional Aquatic Center, the fitness center is open as well, so we're up and running in those two. We're looking at getting our outdoor pools, Lobs in East Mesa, ready for inspection and open to the public for lap swim as well. I don't know if we're going to be having open swim this season, but we'll see how it goes. As Franco said, our staff, recreation section and athletics have been helping with pickleball and tennis and the RC track and the RC airport, as well as the shooting range. So they've been monitoring and checking numbers and checking for social distancing and all that good stuff. They're also working on some virtual programming to keep at least sports skills a little bit going, as well as some arts and crafts and some activities for the youth. We have a new little chalk fitness challenge that the kids we're promoting for the kids to make a little chalk obstacle course on their sidewalks, and we'll be giving out prizes, as well as virtual music in the park. We're undertaking the task of videotaping 34 bands for virtual music in the park. We've got about 8 down as after tomorrow night. So we'll keep pushing that forward, and those will be shown on YouTube as well as the city's Facebook pages. Like Franco said, I'm very proud of our staff and how they've made adjustments and stepped up to do the work. It's hard to do, and there's a lot of uncertainty. We're watching the public schools to see how youth sports go. It might be a while for youth sports and adult sports. Our rec centers are closed, but the staff is working hard. So thank you guys and I hope you guys stay safe. And if anybody has any questions, I'm here to answer.
With the aquatic center, is everybody supposed to call and schedule a time or reservations?
Yes, you call a day before to schedule reservations. And I know that's not the best system, but with the limited amount of capacity that we have, that's the system that we're doing. So you call into the aquatic center a day before for both lap swim and the upstairs fitness area.
Good, thank you.
It's no problem.
Any other staff comments?
I just want to say, this is Mr. Chairman and the board. This is Ceci Vasconcelos for the record. And I just want to say that I'm working alongside Parks and Rec to distribute information, which is extremely important during this time, and addressing issues as they come up, and helping them to make their events and activities a success. And going virtual has not been easy for a department that's so used to working with the public. So I have to commend them for doing a great job. And we're just here to make sure that the public knows, or hopefully help the public know what is going on. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other staff comments? Board member comments?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to give a quick compliment to staff about reopening and protocols. My wife and my daughter were able to go to the aquatic center this week and really enjoyed their time and really felt safe and just really enjoyed their time. So I want to give kudos to staff.
Yep. Which board members are left on here? Let's see. Mr. Engel or Ms. Schuler?
I have no comments, Mr. Chairman, except for continue to be safe. You guys are doing an excellent job, and hopefully we'll get back to some kind of normal here sooner than later.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, this is Stan Engel. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
So yeah, my comments, of course, are thanks to the staff for doing a good job and getting us through these unprecedented times. Really appreciate that. And then I'd also like to comment that to apologize, I think, because I may have let an expletive slip out there when I noticed my full phone number was on the YouTube feed. I'm glad that somebody fixed that, but that was pretty distressing. So I think I may have to, we'll have to figure something out for the next board meeting, because yeah, Zoom just kept crashing on me every time I joined after the initial crash. But again, thanks to staff for everything, and that's it. And stay safe.
All right, then my comment, they've all said, so you guys have all done a wonderful job, and it's hard, and we're gonna get complaints. Everyone knows better, and these times are crazy. I just don't get it. And we just keep moving forward. I don't get it at all, but we just keep moving forward. And I thank all the staff with everything you do, because in the aspect of recreation gives us an out during these times. So with opening up more recreation, it gives us a little outlet that is much needed at this time. So that's all I really have to say. All I need now is a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chair, this is Sonia. Hold on.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
Real quick, I just want to let you know that the Parks and Rec team is operating at 40% right now. We'll be moving into 60% here the first week of July. And then depending on how things go, we should move into 75% in August. So hopefully, right now, the team is doing an exceptional job with being at 40% and only being about a week behind after being closed down completely in March. And then they had to bring us back in a big hurry because people were all over the place and calling left and right about different things. So I just want to say that the administrators, Miss Kathy with all the projects have done an amazing job. We've gotten a lot of, we're still moving just as fast. We had a little hiccup because we got shut down and then we had to figure out how to keep moving, but they have all done an exceptional job. And I can't believe how much we've been able to get done and how they're still moving and getting things out there. So I just want to say that and put that on the record. I really, really do appreciate each and every one of them. And I do appreciate the board for sticking with us and trying this new thing out. I know it was a little bit of a challenge, but we've had a few hiccups here and there, but we'll be all right. And then lastly, I'd like to say that if you have any challenges with Zoom, with the internet or things like that, we have some space here at Castañeda. We can put people in different areas and make sure we keep with the social distancing. And so that might be an option for you. So just let me know as we move forward to the next meeting. And then of course, I'll have Ms. Zaylor taken care of as well for the July meeting. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. I apologize for skipping you. We just had your reopening phase and then I just skipped you. So I apologize for that. So time to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, motion passes. Thank you guys for everything. Everybody stay safe. And this is my second Zoom meeting ever. And the first one, I guess, running. That was kind of awkward, but.
You did well.
Yeah, you did great.
Did a great job.
Thank you all. Great job,
It's just
everybody.